Now that Diddy's trial has officially begun, things are quickly spiraling out of control, and not in his favor. Shocking new revelations are emerging, and reports suggest that Diddy may be involved in witness intimidation and obstruction of justice.
He is now being accused of obstructing justice, witness tampering, and so forth.
But that's not all. There's growing speculation that he may have lied under oath, and the judge isn't taking it lightly. In fact, sources say his anger is escalating by the minute. If things keep heading in this direction, Diddy could be facing a life sentence far sooner than anyone anticipated. In this video, I'll break down the chaos unfolding in the courtroom and exactly what Diddy did to push the judge to the brink. It all exploded on Thursday, May 8, 2025. What was supposed to be just another day in the ongoing legal battle against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs turned into a pivotal moment in the case. Judge Aaron Subramanian, who's been overseeing the trial, found himself at the center of a major turning point. For those following closely since jury selection began on May 5th, tension had already been building. Opening statements were set for Monday, May 12th, kicking off what prosecutors expect to be an intense 8 to 10 week trial. The courtroom was already packed and buzzing with media, but then a bombshell dropped. Prosecutors introduced evidence suggesting that Diddy may have committed perjury, lying under oath during prior testimony. This came during a key pretrial hearing focused on finalizing the pool of 45 potential jurors, before narrowing it down to the final 12 jurors and 6 alternates. During the hearing, prosecutors presented new evidence that directly contradicted sworn statements Diddy had previously made, statements in which he denied having any contact with witnesses or individuals linked to the case. But according to court documents, not only did Diddy attempt to influence witnesses, he allegedly did so while in custody at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Prosecutors claim he used phone accounts belonging to at least 8 other inmates and made unauthorized three-way calls to individuals outside his approved contact list. Clear violations of prison regulations and a serious legal breach. And then came the twist no one saw coming. One of the potential jurors selected for the pool turned out to be an employee at MDC Brooklyn, the very facility where Diddy's been held since September 2024. When that connection was revealed in court, jaws dropped. Some attendees even broke into stunned laughter, unable to believe the absurdity of the situation. What happens next could change everything.
Now, the issue with that is Diddy is currently locked up at NDC Brooklyn. He's been housed there since September.
And he could have got paid off, he could have got promised something, anything.
The judge's response was swift and uncompromising. Within moments, the juror with ties to MDC Brooklyn was dismissed, but that wasn't all. Judge Aaron Subramanian issued a rare public rebuke to both the prosecution and defense, slamming them for their failure to properly vet the jury pool. The courtroom fell into stunned silence as the judge underscored the gravity of the charges and the absolute necessity for precision in these proceedings. As the hearing progressed, attention quickly shifted to what prosecutors described as a broader pattern of deception by Sean Diddy Combs, one that extended far beyond the jury selection mishap. They presented new evidence suggesting that Combs had deliberately misled the court regarding his communication with key witnesses, some of whom had been served grand jury subpoenas. According to court documents, Combs allegedly contacted a former associate, Kenna Harper, 58 times over just 4 days, starting on September 10, 2024. Days after dawn, Richard filed a civil lawsuit accusing him of assault and other misconduct. The total number of calls and messages between Combs and Harper reportedly reached 128 before abruptly stopping on September 14th. Lead prosecutor Emily Johnson told the court these weren't casual messages. She claimed they included pleas for loyalty, emotional manipulation, and attempts to reframe past events, urging the witness to reinterpret encounters as consensual, all while dangling the possibility of ongoing financial support. Johnson also accused Combs of using intermediaries and planting false narratives in an effort to gaslight witnesses and sway their testimony. If true, the implications are massive. These acts would constitute serious obstruction of justice, an outright assault on the integrity of the court. Witness tampering had already played a major role in earlier bail hearings. Back on November 27, 2024, Judge Subramanian denied Combs bail, citing credible evidence of his violent tendencies and repeated violations of prison regulations to circumvent communication restrictions. And before that, on September 19th, U.S. Magistrate Judge Robin Tarnowski had already rejected bail, saying she couldn't guarantee Combs wouldn't flee or pose a danger to witnesses. That decision was later upheld on appeal by U.S. District Judge Andrew Carter Jr. The charges against Combs had been piling up for months. He's facing a sweeping indictment that includes racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation for prostitution. Prosecutors allege that between 2008 and 2024, Combs led a criminal enterprise built on coercion, threats, violence, forced labor, arson, bribery, and systematic abuse. But yesterday's courtroom revelations pushed the stakes to a whole new level. Perjury and contempt of court are now front and center. Legal analysts were quick to point out that perjury in federal court is a felony, punishable by up to 5 years in prison, completely separate from any other sentence Combs might receive if convicted on the core charges. Even more pressing for the defense, how this could derail the trial itself. With Judge Subramanian now openly questioning Combs' credibility and expressing deep dissatisfaction with his conduct, the path ahead looks even more treacherous. And then came the most stunning move yet. According to those inside the courtroom, Judge Subramanian announced he would refer the matter to federal prosecutors for possible new charges, perjury, and obstruction of justice. A step legal observers called almost unheard of in a case of this scale. He didn't stop there. The judge also revoked procedural privileges previously granted to Combs and his legal team, citing a pattern of deception and disrespect toward the court. The atmosphere in the room turned electric as it became clear just how much had changed. By restricting procedural tools, the judge effectively tightened the noose around Combs' defense, creating major new hurdles just days before opening statements. What started as a routine pre-trial hearing to finalize the jury had suddenly transformed into a legal earthquake, one that could reshape the entire trial. One thing is now crystal clear. Judge Subramanian will not tolerate any attempt to manipulate this court through deception. As for what this means when the trial officially begins on May 12th, that remains to be seen. But the mood inside that Manhattan courtroom has shifted permanently, and the allegations don't exist in a vacuum. They echo earlier claims made by Philip Pines, Combs' former senior executive assistant, who worked closely with him from 2019 to 2021. In a detailed lawsuit and public interviews, Pines described a man who used power and money to demand loyalty and silence. Now, the justice system is fighting back.
I remember hearing the words, "Prove your loyalty to me, King."
Phil Pines, who was Diddy's senior executive assistant from 2019 to 2021, revealing to journalist Mara Escampo details of the night he says Sean Combs coerced him into having sex with a woman at an out-of-control sex party.
In his lawsuit, Philip Pines alleged that he was coerced into engaging in sexual acts as a way to prove his loyalty. One disturbing incident he described involved being pressured to have sex with a woman during what was referred to as a Wild King night. Pines also claimed he was tasked with cleaning up after these parties, events that, according to his account, frequently involved drugs, excessive alcohol, and explicit sexual activity.
Freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time.
Alcohol, marijuana, ketamine, baby oil, and Astroglide were very important. Candles, incense.
While Philip Pines' allegations were initially seen as unrelated to the core criminal charges against Sean Combs, yesterday's revelations suggest a far more troubling pattern. Prosecutors now argue that the same coercive behavior Pines described is part of a broader strategy, one that includes witness manipulation and possible perjury. The judge's reaction was triggered after prosecutors presented evidence indicating that Combs not only lied about contacting witnesses, but may have also attempted to influence the jury selection process itself. The revelation that one of the potential jurors worked at MDC Brooklyn, the very facility where Combs has been held, immediately raised alarms. Although no direct link between Combs and the juror has been proven, the fact that neither the prosecution nor the defense flagged such an obvious conflict during jury vetting drew a sharp rebuke from the judge. The oversight was seen as a serious lapse, further undermining the credibility of both legal teams and adding fuel to an already volatile case.
Yeah, how did he get to the point where he's coming in front of the court and this is being put on record? Not only does it not look like, it doesn't look good, right?
This latest incident unfolded just as allegations surfaced, accusing Combs of lying under oath about his contact with witnesses, creating what one courtroom observer called a perfect storm of judicial outrage. Tensions in the courtroom were already high, and prosecutors argued that Combs had been using legal tactics specifically aimed at delaying and obstructing the proceedings. On April 18, 2025, Combs' legal team requested a 2-month adjournment to better prepare their defense, though they initially floated the idea of a 2-week delay. This request followed a third superseding indictment issued on April 4th, which added 2 new charges, one count of sex trafficking and another of transporting individuals for prostitution. Judge Subramanian denied the adjournment, stating that Combs already had ample legal representation, at least 4 attorneys, and that the trial would proceed as scheduled on May 5, 2025. The judge also made it clear that he would not allow what he described as a fishing expedition for more evidence. These escalating tensions came to a head during yesterday's hearing, which signaled that the court viewed Combs' alleged dishonesty regarding witness contact as part of a broader scheme to obstruct justice. Legal analysts described the atmosphere in the courtroom as extraordinarily tense as the evidence suggesting perjury piled up. The court's decision to refer the matter for potential additional charges underscored how seriously it views the allegations. But beyond the day's courtroom drama, these developments carry serious implications for the trial ahead. Credibility has now become a central issue, further complicating Combs' defense strategy. Combs is already facing extremely serious federal charges, including racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transporting individuals for the purpose of prostitution. Prosecutors allege these actions were part of a long-running criminal enterprise stretching from 2004 to 2024. The specific claims include using his business empire to coerce women into sex acts at events dubbed freak-offs, and maintaining control over victims through threats, violence, and blackmail. These charges alone carry potentially decades-long prison sentences if he's convicted. The added threat of perjury charges only deepens his legal jeopardy. Each federal perjury count carries a penalty of up to 5 years in prison. Even more immediately concerning for the defense is how this latest revelation might affect the jury pool. While jurors are instructed to only consider evidence formally presented during the trial, the widespread publicity surrounding yesterday's proceedings could influence the mindset of potential jurors. The judge has also revoked certain procedural privileges that had previously been extended to Combs and his legal team. While the exact nature of these revoked privileges has not been made public, legal experts speculate that they could involve limits on filing motions or restrictions on how certain evidence and arguments can be presented. In a case this complex, such restrictions could dramatically affect the defense's ability to challenge key testimony or evidence. With opening statements just days away, Combs' legal team now faces the daunting challenge of adjusting their trial strategy under a cloud of judicial disapproval and with fewer procedural tools at their disposal. Outside the courtroom, these revelations have reignited public interest in the testimony of other witnesses and accusers. One of the most prominent among them is Courtney Burgess, who has made serious claims against Combs, including allegations that he possesses sex tapes involving the music mogul. In an interview with News Nation, Burgess referred to Combs as Lucifer and claimed to have video footage showing him and other celebrities engaged in sexual acts and assaults, some allegedly involving minors. Burgess further claimed that 2 or 3 individuals in the tapes were underage and that the celebrities involved had been drugged against their will. Combs has vehemently denied all allegations. In response to the mounting accusations, Combs has filed a $50 million defamation lawsuit against Courtney Burgess, attorney Ariel Mitchell, and News Nation. This legal counterattack only adds to the increasingly tangled web of claims that the jury may ultimately have to consider. The case has been further complicated by separate but related allegations involving other high-profile figures. In March 2025, a lawsuit named NFL star Odell Beckham Jr., comedian Drusky, and others as defendants in a violent gang rape that allegedly took place in 2018 in Orinda, California. Both men have denied the accusations. Beckham stated he was not in Orinda at the time and has never met the accuser. Drusky, in the next post, also denied any involvement, noting that in 2018 he was not a public figure and had no ties to the entertainment industry. These overlapping allegations have created a legal landscape that prosecutors must now navigate with extreme care. However, after yesterday's dramatic courtroom developments, the trial's focus appears to be shifting squarely onto Combs himself, particularly his credibility and his alleged attempts to manipulate the judicial process. Observers in the courtroom described the atmosphere as tense and electric. For Combs and his defense team, the path ahead has suddenly become far more treacherous. The revelations have not only dealt a blow to Combs' credibility, but have also introduced new legal hurdles that could severely hinder the defense's ability to mount a strong case. As all parties brace for opening statements, scheduled to begin Monday, May 12th, the events of the past day have cast a long and ominous shadow over the trial. What was already a high-stakes, high-profile case has now escalated into something even more consequential, with the integrity of the judicial process now a central issue. The key question moving forward is how these recent developments will shape the trial's trajectory, and whether yesterday's revelations mark a decisive turning point in what's quickly becoming one of the most closely watched legal battles in recent history. As the public and media digest the stunning events that unfolded in Judge Subramanian's courtroom, all eyes now turn to the road ahead for Combs, his legal team, and the trial that is about to begin. Legal analysts across the board have emphasized the significance of the judge's response to allegations that Combs lied under oath regarding witness contact. A growing consensus among experts suggests that these events may mark a pivotal moment in the case, one that could define its outcome. This case has taken a dramatic turn, one that could fundamentally reshape how everything unfolds moving forward. At the center of this shift is the judge's decision to refer the matter for possible perjury charges against Combs, creating a serious new legal threat. Federal perjury is no small matter. Each count carries a penalty of up to 5 years in prison, and beyond the punishment, it strikes at the core of the justice system. Perjury represents a breach of the trust that the court system depends on. When a defendant is believed to have lied under oath, it creates a cascade of problems for the defense, said Elena Michaels, a prominent legal analyst and former federal prosecutor. It not only exposes the client to further charges, but it also shatters credibility with the court, something that's nearly impossible to restore. This blow to Combs' credibility could be especially damaging, considering the serious charges he already faces: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transporting individuals for prostitution. These charges stem from a sweeping federal indictment accusing Combs of running a criminal enterprise between 2004 and 2024, using his wealth and influence to coerce women into sexual acts. Prosecutors allege these acts often took place at events referred to as freak-offs or Wild King Nights, where victims were allegedly subjected to threats, violence, and intimidation to ensure their silence. The gravity of the accusations is further underscored by the court's repeated refusal to grant Combs bail, most recently in November 2024, when Judge Subramanian cited the documented risk of violence and potential witness tampering. But the legal implications aren't the only challenge. Yesterday's dramatic confrontation in court also raises serious questions about the defense team's strategy. Combs' attorneys, Mark Agnifilo, Tenny Garagos, Alexander Shapiro, and Anna Estval, are now under pressure to not only salvage their client's credibility, but also prepare for an incredibly complex trial under increasingly difficult conditions. Adding to their burden, the judge has revoked certain procedural privileges that had previously been granted to the defense. While these specifics haven't been made public, legal experts speculate they could involve limits on filing motions, restrictions on how evidence can be introduced, or even constraints on cross-examining key witnesses. In a case of this complexity, procedural flexibility is vital, said criminal defense attorney Jonathan Reynolds. If the court places restrictions on how the defense can operate, it could drastically alter their ability to challenge the prosecution's case. The timing couldn't be worse. With opening statements set to begin in just days, the defense now faces the enormous task of pivoting their strategy at the 11th hour. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of extensive and deeply disturbing allegations. The prosecution's case reportedly includes multiple witnesses and alleged victims. Among them is Philip Pines, Combs' former senior executive assistant, who worked with him from 2019 to 2021. In a lawsuit and several media appearances, Pines has claimed he was pressured into sexual acts to prove his loyalty, including being coerced into having sex with a woman during one of the so-called Wild King Nights. As the trial approaches, the defense is clearly entering uncharted and increasingly hostile legal territory. With credibility in question, new charges looming, and mounting public scrutiny, the stakes have never been higher.
I just thought to myself, if I don't do this, I don't know what's gonna happen. This has all been a very psychological, emotional roller coaster for me.
Pines also claims he was tasked with cleaning up after these parties, events that allegedly featured heavy drug use, alcohol, and sexual activity. According to his statements, his responsibilities included disposing of drug paraphernalia, cleaning bodily fluids, deleting incriminating videos, and discreetly paying off hotel staff to ensure their silence.
Did you ever see Diddy engaging in sexual activity?
I wouldn't see him engaging, but I would see him directing. He's usually the one filming, from my experience. You were instructed to scrub these things, deleting any photos and videos that might be on these devices.
These allegations are consistent with several other claims laid out in lawsuits against Combs, reinforcing what prosecutors describe as a clear pattern of exploitation and coercion. They argue that the evidence points to a systematic approach, a calculated strategy of grooming, manipulation, and abuse of power. A pivotal figure in this broader narrative is Adria English, a former adult entertainer who filed a lawsuit in July 2024. She alleges she was groomed into sex trafficking at Combs' infamous white parties between 2004 and 2009. English claims she was drugged with substances like ecstasy and coerced into sex with high-profile guests. According to her, Combs used his influence to keep her silent, threatening both physical harm and damage to her career. Her case, however, has encountered significant complications. By March 2025, two separate legal teams had withdrawn from representing her, citing irreconcilable differences, uncooperative behavior, and questionable conduct. Despite these setbacks, English's accusations remain part of the broader case that prosecutors plan to present at trial. The allegations surrounding Combs don't stop at his personal conduct, they extend to his wider social and business circles. In March 2025, an amended lawsuit filed by Ashley Palm named NFL star Odell Beckham Jr. and comedian Drusky, among others, alleging their involvement in a violent gang rape that occurred in 2018 in Orinda, California. Both men have forcefully denied the claims, with Beckham asserting he wasn't in Orinda at the time and had never met Palm. Drusky also denied involvement, stating he had no entertainment industry connections in 2018 and was not yet a public figure. Against this already fraught backdrop, the focus on Combs' credibility becomes even more consequential. The evidence that triggered the judge's strong response reportedly involved phone records and witness statements that directly contradicted Combs' prior testimony about his contact with witnesses. According to court filings, prosecutors presented information showing that Combs used other inmates' phone privileges at the Metropolitan Detention Center to make unauthorized calls to individuals connected to the case. This apparent circumvention of prison communication protocols was interpreted as a deliberate attempt to evade monitoring. The situation grew even more problematic with the discovery that a potential juror works at the very facility where Combs is currently being held. For legal observers, the dramatic events in Judge Subramanian's courtroom represent a rare and consequential moment in an already unprecedented case. The proceedings, open to the public, journalists, and legal analysts, sent a clear message: the court is treating allegations of perjury and obstruction with utmost seriousness. When a federal judge reacts forcefully to evidence that a defendant may have lied under oath, it's a seismic event, explained judicial scholar Priya Sharma. It's more than just disapproval. It marks a breakdown in the foundational trust that must exist between a court and a defendant, no matter how adversarial the proceedings may be. Such a breakdown carries ripple effects throughout the trial. While judges are trained to remain impartial, their perceptions can subtly shape rulings, from objections to the admissibility of key evidence. And although jurors are explicitly told to base their verdicts solely on the facts presented during the trial, the charged atmosphere created by these revelations could inevitably influence the courtroom dynamic. For Combs' defense team, these developments present a serious strategic dilemma. On one hand, they must continue to mount a robust defense against the sweeping and severe charges. On the other, they must now do so while navigating a damaged relationship with the court, one that's been strained by accusations of dishonesty and attempts to manipulate the judicial process. This already difficult task is further complicated by the judge's recent decision to revoke certain procedural privileges previously afforded to the defense. While the specifics haven't been disclosed publicly, legal experts say the move, though rare, is within the court's authority, especially when there are concerns about obstruction or bad faith conduct. Whatever route the defense chooses moving forward, one thing is clear: they now face what one courtroom observer described as an uphill battle of historic proportions. On a legal landscape that has suddenly grown much steeper, the presumption of innocence remains a foundational principle. Yet the practical reality is that yesterday's courtroom confrontation has introduced a new set of complications for a defense already grappling with serious and complex charges. For prosecutors, however, the developments may have bolstered their overarching narrative that Sean Diddy Combs is a man willing to manipulate and intimidate to protect his interests. The allegations of perjury related to witness contact directly align with broader claims that he ran his business empire through fear, control, and coercion. These claims are central to the racketeering and sex trafficking charges that lie at the heart of the prosecution's case. But beyond legal strategy, yesterday's events raise critical questions about celebrity, power, and accountability in the justice system. Combs built an empire spanning music, fashion, media, and business. With it came immense wealth, influence, and cultural adulation. Now, the allegations against him force a reckoning. How was that power used behind closed doors? And did the systems meant to protect the vulnerable truly function in the shadow of such celebrity? These are questions with implications far beyond any one defendant. They speak to societal concerns about whether justice is accessible to all, or only to those with the means to bend it. For the many alleged victims who have come forward, yesterday's developments may feel like a long overdue recognition of the intimidation and manipulation they say kept them silent for years. Several have described being too afraid to speak out, convinced that Combs' reach would prevent them from being believed or protected. As all parties now prepare for opening statements on Monday, the legal community is closely watching how Judge Subramanian will navigate the minefield laid by these revelations. Having confronted concerns about possible perjury, the judge must now ensure the trial proceeds fairly and with integrity, guided strictly by the evidence presented in court. That challenge, balancing fairness with firmness, impartiality with accountability, is among the most difficult facing any judge in a high-profile case. And after yesterday's dramatic turn, the stakes have only grown higher. Jurors, too, face a heavy burden. Next week, they'll begin hearing testimony spanning 2 decades. Testimony that's expected to be both complex and disturbing. They will have to determine where the truth lies in a case that has already captivated and divided public opinion. Meanwhile, the referral for potential perjury charges creates a parallel legal track that could continue well beyond the current trial. The revocation of certain procedural privileges for the defense presents immediate strategic hurdles, and because the courtroom showdown happened in full public view, it will no doubt be dissected by legal scholars and commentators for years to come. One thing is clear. The events in Judge Subramanian's courtroom have fundamentally reshaped this already extraordinary case. What was once merely one of the most closely watched trials in recent memory has now evolved into something even more significant, both legally and culturally. As opening statements draw near, all eyes remain fixed on that federal courtroom in Manhattan. But the question now goes far beyond whether Sean Diddy Combs will be found guilty or innocent. It's about whether the judicial process itself can withstand the pressures of celebrity, influence, and allegations of deliberate deception. For a music mogul who once commanded global attention through his art and enterprise, the spotlight now shines with a far different intensity, one that exposes not glamour or success, but allegations of exploitation, coercion, and potentially perjury. And yesterday's dramatic courtroom moment may well be remembered as a turning point, a bold reminder that in the eyes of the law, no one, no matter how famous or powerful, is above the truth. That brings us to the end of this report.